Counselor Accents Podcast. Two school counselors who love their jobs. Oh, and they happen to have Southern accents too. Bless their hearts.
I'm Laura Rankhorn.
And I'm Kim Crumley. And together we are Counselor Accents. Two school counselors who are in the trenches with you every day.
We know what you're going through because we're living it every single day.
I said every day, you said every day, because guess what? It is every day.
It's every single day.
And we have started school. I know a lot of people in the United States and various countries around the world who listen to this have not started school.
So soak up those last few days of summer.
Soak them up. And you get into this false sense of, and I don't mean to sound discouraging, but you think it's kind of like New Year's resolutions. And you think, this year I'm going to lose that 20 pounds. So this year I'm going to, have all these things hitting the ground running, and then it happens. And as a school counselor, you're like, but it's going to. We're just a few days in, so I'm gonna get it on track. But just to remind you,
you're right.
It is like New Year's resolution.
And to me, that's something that when you're truly in the trenches. Like you can have all of these curriculum maps and you can have all of these wonderful things, but when you're truly in the trenches, it is like what is it they say? The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. That is so true.
You just have to be flexible enough to let it go awry.
You're right. Because just know you started the year with great intentions, and then you've got somebody running down the hall with no clothes on. I mean, it happens. No, David, right?
Yes. No, David.
So I would like to ask the audience to put their thinking caps on for a second and riddle me this, audience. Why do you think in the early morning hours, mid-July, why did I get a call from Atlanta Police Department asking me, do you know Kim Crumley?
Oh, that is a scary call. That is a scary call.
It is scary.
Because you're waiting on that call. You know that I'm some kind of fake, like I'm married to you and I'm married to somebody else. I've murdered somebody and it's some Dateline. So you're waiting on that call anyway, right?
I listen to too many true crime to know that it's not going to end well, one way or another.
No.
That's not a threat. I'm just saying, I'm stating the obvious. But yes, I woke up from a deep slumber. We had just finished ASCA. And so, there's ASCA tired. And so I was here at my house and woke up early one morning because they're in a different time zone than we are, just by an hour, but still that hour makes a difference. And so he said, hey, I am looking for Laura Rankhorn. And I said, oh, this is she. And he said, this is Mike from the Atlanta Police Department. Do you happen to know, are you associated with Kim Crumley?
And you went, no, nope.
Not at all. I have never heard of her. He said, I did a Google search and I saw that you two may be closely connected. So, you're connected to me.
That's it.
But tell our audience why the Atlanta Police Department might have been calling me.
The Atlanta Police Department called you because I lost my computer. Now, me and computers for our school system have been on, it's been bad. I'm just going to say.
If you're a long-time listener, then you may be keeping count.
And this would have been my third. The first one, my son with special needs took all the keys off. And they, that got a chuckle and like, yes, of course we'll replace it. The second one, my blind husband dropped into the swimming pool because he did not know it was in the chair that he was going to move closer to the pool for me. And let me tell you, when a computer hits the pool, it turns everything black. I don't know what's coming out of those things. So this would have been the third one that I had lost or something had happened to it. So I was very deeply distressed and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, oh Lord, help me find my computer. And then Mike,
lo and behold, Mike
finds my computer and does his due diligence. I mean, not just
Googled
that.
You.
He Googled he kept in touch. We're still talking.
Oh, he's there now.
He's here now. I'm actually leaving my husband now for Mike. So Mike and I are best buds now, and but he just went beyond what most people would do. I've just been so thankful for, like, he took it to a FedEx, and he did all the
Aw.
stuff back to me, and just was super sweet guy. So shout out to Mike, because
Shout out to Mike. Well, it was funny because I did just wake up, and I don't know why I don't ever want to admit that I just woke up. You know that about me.
know that. You never, I don't know why you were like,
I think it's because
all the time. So that could
you-
be why.
I feel like I never sleep, and that's why I have to take these midday
Mm.
naps, because I'm up real late and then I have to get up early. And so anyway,
Yes.
so Mike said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He said, "I forgot about the 1 hour time difference. I woke you up." I, not wanting to admit that I was sleeping, said, "Oh, no. I've got a sore throat." And he kept apologizing. I didn't have a sore throat. I thought maybe I did, because I just woke up and I hadn't had water. So I thought maybe I had a sore
You're
throat.
using that deep smoker voice that you have when you first get up. So
Right.
you know.
And I was trying to cover it like, and I practiced answering the phone before I answered, like, hello. Anyway, yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I've not told you what happened to me this morning.
Oh,
So this morning, I wear, because you told me last night to get all my white in. Because
oh
you know,
yeah, because it's almost Labor Day.
white.
Can't
That's
wear it
right.
after Labor Day.
So I am dragging the white dress out, and it's the kind that is see-through, like
Yeah.
at the top, like holes all in the top, up top, like holes, but it has a slip that goes under it. Well, unbeknownst to me, and if anybody at school is listening, they have stories for miles about my clothing mishaps that
And your
should have
undergarments.
gotten me fired by now. So the slip had slid from its, I don't know if I want to say casings. I don't know what it slipped from. Its little holders, and was around my waist. I did not know it.
Oh,
A little slip that goes under the holy dress is. So I don't know if I can say breasticles on here. I don't know what I can say, but there were things showing. So I go out to my little principal, who is just young enough to be my child, and so I go out to him, and I'm always, bouncy, if you will, in the morning, and I'm bouncing out there trying to give him some good hugs and squeezings
I'm
for the
so
day.
uncomfortable with this story. I'm so uncomfortable for
he
your
was
principal.
so uncomfortable. He has told this story all day long because sweat popped down on his little forehead, and I could see he was trying to get words out, like cover up, because it was where the parents were dropping their kids off. And then one of the other teachers standing there were like, Kim, what are you, she grabs me and she takes me in the bathroom and she pulls up my little slip, And so he's told this story all day long. And I'm like, okay, come on. I am old enough to be, who cares, at this age? Who's looking at this age? But it was, I call it it was a mishap. But the thing was, Dr. Barnett was there this morning too. Only by the grace of God, because if I could have got to him first, I'd have give him some hugs. But I did not get to him first. I got to Caleb, thank heavens, my principal first. Dr. Barnett is our superintendent. So anyway, that's my little tale for this morning, if you will. Yeah,
my
I know
goodness.
your head like, what? But
I'm shaking my head thinking, do we leave this in or do we edit it all out? Do I beep over the names to protect the innocent? What do I do here?
No, you just let it ride, because it happened. And the best thing, this is the lesson that I told Caleb. I said, Caleb, it's always best just to be honest with somebody. Say, hey, your pants are unzipped. Hey, you got a little something in that left nostril.
Hey, your slip is around your ankles and everything you've got is showing.
That's perfect. So it's just best to be honest. And as I could do a whole episode on clothing mishaps. I don't know what happens when I think I'm getting ready in such a rush in the morning that maybe I'm not making sure everything's where it's supposed to be. And I just take off, and sometimes things happen. But anyway, we're going to move right along, because that was a very long intro. But I asked specifically for this time with you because this has been on my heart and something that I'm super, super excited about. But really knowing, and this journey began for me probably, well, for everybody in the United States and around the world. But last year, I wanted answers. I just wanted solutions for how to help these kids. Like, what is the solution? I mean, we're not going forward. We're moving backwards with kids' behaviors and trauma and mental health issues and all these kinds of things. And one of the things that I did know was this. I did know this, that the counselor's role is changing as we are not in changing in a way that we can't be the be all that we have been in the past, because it's not like we're dealing with one or two kids per grade level or per class even. And so I had looked at our numbers of those kids who are in that constant behavior pattern of constantly, and so those numbers were really higher than I wanted them to be. And so the thing that I knew had to happen was that we had to start getting teachers in on the conversation of how to help them, because those kids are with them all day, every day. And God love our teachers. I mean, they're amazing. So, but they have them all day. And so what was happening was I would get a student and I would work on whatever, or even a small group, and send them back to those classrooms. And if that teacher was triggering that student or not on understanding what's going on in that student's brain, then we were just in a circle. They weren't behaving for the teacher because the teacher wasn't building that relationship that needed to be built, possibly not understanding the trauma. So we really worked. You and I worked with Joy Winchester, and she's been on our show before, and she kind of helped us understand the brain. And we have really been excited to bring some of this to our county. And so a lot of our people in our county are going through some trainings to understand the brain. Now, we're doing the conscious discipline, but it comes in many different names. It's the same premise of, why is that behavior there? You're looking at the root of the behavior instead of, you're instead of just this is a behavior, we're looking at what's causing the behavior more. And so this has been an exciting year to bring the entire faculty, or most of our faculty at my school, along this journey of looking at why students are acting the way they're acting, and me maybe going into the classrooms more to help with the teachers. So these people, some of these are young people who've not been out of college long, and that's why they're leaving. I mean, they can't. So they feel more empowered. And I'm bringing this up now, and I wanted to bring this up now because if you're going to do teacher training, and we do those teacher trainings as school counselors, I think never before, and you may not feel like, well, this isn't my wheelhouse, or I don't feel comfortable about doing this, but I think it's so important to help teachers understand your work and help equip them to help with that work. So your thoughts on that? That's a lot that I've said.
Well, I think that, not to harp on we're in the trenches with you. I don't mean to just continue to say that, but I think this is one of those things where if you have not been a counselor for the past 2 years, this job is so different than it was even 2 years ago. And the behaviors are so different. I don't know what's happened. I mean, we can guess, we have theories of what's happened. The thing is, like you said, teachers are walking away. They're looking to us as the social emotional gatekeepers in the school. And counselors are kind of throwing their hands up because nobody has been trained on behaviors to this degree. None of us that are in the school every day have been trained to deal with what we're seeing every day. So that's where you and I said we have got to have some rubber meets the road, things that we can do, ways that we can equip teachers. And it's like you said, the game has changed a bit. Used to teachers could bring us that student, the outlier here and there,
Yeah.
and we'd work with those students. We may even have 5 at a time. Those are not outliers anymore. Those are not things that can always be fixed with a small group or some individual one-on-one time. Of course, that's still a part of our job, and we're not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Those are still going to be things that we have to do from time to time, but these behaviors are more severe, and people are looking to us. So Kim and I are the type of people where, we want to find the solution. We're solution-oriented people, and so we started digging. And
here's the thing that we're seeing is there are essential skills that students are missing. And that may be because of trauma. A lot of it is because of trauma. And so to look at that student and say, what caused this behavior, and to look deeper into the root and dig deep to look at those skills that kid may be missing. And as school counselors, that's exciting to me because that's something I can sink my teeth in. And it's not, I think a lot of times, and this is just, a lot of times as school counselors, and I'm especially, like, we're telling them we're expecting kids to be able to do things that they're just emotionally not ready to do. And so to help teachers understand that too. And let me just back up. And one of the things that we're really working on first, and it may be this entire school year that we work on that, is just building that relationship with students, to build that you're safe. You are safe. You have a relationship here at this school. You're safe at this school. And so we're putting things in place and being very intentional about just really connecting with those kids. And so we're all, like, as a school, when kids come in, and I know this sounds like cliche and you've seen it before, but every kid greets us with however greeting they want. And it's more than just their teacher. It's we're all standing there greeting them. And so we're adding more music, and we're looking at the behavior, and we were really tested the very first day. The worst behavior I have seen probably in years from a student, but we never got. That's another thing we're not getting out of we're really trying to teach teachers to stay in their executive brain. That's the brain that is calm and collective no matter what the situation. So when a kid's in that survival brain, that brain that they're throwing chairs, and I mean, we're seeing that like we've never seen before, just kids that are out of control. And to stay in that executive state, teaching teachers how to keep calm when there's chaos. And because here's the deal, Lauren, you know this, our teachers even have trauma. We're not just helping students anymore. We're having to, and we're having to help teachers also to deal with all that they're being faced with and all the trauma that they're going through or have dealt with over the last couple of years.
So because we like to give rubber meets the road, I want to ask you to expound on this for a minute. You said that the thing that you're focusing on, so I think takeaway number 1 for our listeners is you have to make sure that your students feel safe. So it sounds like you all are doing that through rituals, like greeting rituals.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that instill safety in your students?
Well, we're using the words too. And I am so extremely proud of my principal because he is bought into this because he realizes what we've been doing in the past. It doesn't work. Those kids, it just doesn't work. I mean, those discipline of the past is a thing of the past. And so with this student that was just out of control, he just had to just physically hold this student, and he would say, I'm keeping you safe. Just the words, I'm keeping you safe. Just say and breathe. Just that child holding that child's hand or whatever, and just letting them know, teaching them how to breathe. So today was our first day that we all as a school practice breathing together. And, if you had told me this 5 years ago, I would have probably laughed. But now, because we know it works and kids need to know how to do this, but the kids took it so seriously. The school was divided into 2 parts, and I was with the middle school, and they were taking that very seriously. I mean, they were doing the breathing exercises. So all those things help them to feel safe, that their feelings are not scaring us, that we're going to help them with their feelings. We're teaching them some coping skills, and that they're safe. So that is rubber meets the road. Instill safety. Say it. You're safe. My job is to keep you safe. That is our slogan this year. And the kids, know that our job is to keep them safe, and that we're there for them.
Well, and I'm also hearing connection, that just that touch, the connection, holding hands. Those were some of the things that I heard you say just then.
Reading in the morning, being very, very cognizant of making sure that we're in our, and doing stuff to help one another as a staff. We're really focusing on kindness with one another, and uplifting one another, and stepping in when we need to with one another. So that's part of helping the teacher, so that when those kids come in, they're ready with those rituals to be happy and a smile on the face, and the whatever greeting that the kid wants to do. So the rituals are important. And I may have gone off on what we were going to be talking about. You and I were talking about just helping those teachers, but I do think these are good rubber meets the road.
Well, and I think that when you are, and we hope that you do have time to speak to your teachers. We hope, that would be rubber meets the road number 1. If you don't have that time with your faculty, ask for that time. That's one of the things that we're passionate about. Even if it's to introduce your role and what you're doing, it's very valuable. It's one of the things we talk about, plowing your first row straight, and that is definitely a way to plow your first row straight. Just to have that time to explain what you'll be doing. This is kind of another layer to that, to go into the behaviors that we're seeing, to explain to teachers maybe what you're trained, maybe what your limits are, but what your resources are to help with these behaviors. I think one of the most valuable things you can tell your teachers is, I am here to support you too. Just to let them know that you're in the trenches with them, to use that
and
again.
Support the teacher is helping support those students now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a different time, and I can see why people are walking away. We're not prepared for what we're dealing with.
Well, it's interesting.
One of the things go ahead.
It's just interesting that you mentioned earlier, even teachers that are just out of college, brand new baby deers, as we call them, even those are ready to walk away because this is not what they're prepared to deal with.
Absolutely. And so that's part of what I see to help ourselves too. I can't be everywhere into everything. And I don't want my work that I'm doing with students to be undermined by a teacher that might go in and trigger a student. So they have to understand those triggers. So I know that, Laura, you did ACEs.
Yeah. I think that it's important to talk about ACEs, and it's the world that we live in as counselors. And so sometimes we think, well, everybody knows what an ACE score is. And if you don't know about ACEs, then it's a screener that's given to, you don't give it to students, but it's a screener that's available to it's a measurement for what people have gone through in their lives, whether it's abuse, whether it's the loss of a parent, or, a parent that went to prison, drugs and alcohol in the home, things like that. But everything that you have, you get 1 point for. The highest you can get is 10. An ACE score of 4 or more can indicate long-term health damage, long-term health effects, things like that, just because when you understand the brain, and I always say your brain sends an energy drink throughout your body. So your body is just on high alert all the time, and it causes your body to deteriorate. And we compare it to a car whose engine is running and revving for weeks at a time. Well, that engine is going to deteriorate. So when cortisol is pumping through your body, or adrenaline is pumping through your body nonstop because of these things that you've experienced at home, then your body's going to start to feel the effects of it early. So we assume a lot of times that people just know what we're talking about when we say, oh, that's a high ACE score. So I ask a couple of teachers that I know, hey, do you know what an ACE score is? And I sent it out in a text just to kind of poll the audience. Every single teacher that I asked came back and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. About 2/3 of the people that I asked said, do you mean ACT? Because I know a lot about the ACT. So that was just very telling to me that this world that we live in and this language that we use doesn't translate to people that are outside of our field.
And we assume,
Yeah.
and so don't assume that teachers understand the child's brain. Don't assume that teachers understand trauma and triggers. And so that is something that Laura and I did. It was to explain that what those ACE scores are, and we explain that's not something that we're doing for children, and we don't want them to do that for our children.
Right.
We're just wanting them to be aware that that's what these kids, now is the time that they may be living through those ACE scores, and the school may be the safest place for them. And go ahead.
Well, I would say another rubber meets the road on that. For one, study up on ACEs, pull out the ACE screener and hand it out to your staff, because it's very eye-opening for your staff to know their own personal ACE score. I think it reveals a lot to them about themselves whenever they know, oh my goodness, no wonder I feel this way about certain things. My ACE score is whatever. Whether you have a high ACE score or a low ACE score, it's going to determine how you react to some of these behaviors.
And one of the things that, and I know you had talked about it, Laura, and was that sometimes when we have a very low ACE score, that we expect kids to behave maybe the way we were raised.
Yes, we see things through the lens that we were raised.
And to get teachers to understand that these kids that we're seeing, a lot of those kids are living with these ACE scores, and then we're concerned about, just getting that work done, when that is not just about the academics. To get teachers to understand, you don't want to waste your time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to waste your time teaching. And if that kid is not in their executive brain, if that kid does not feel that love, that relationship, that kid doesn't feel safe, they cannot learn. And to grasp hold of that concept is powerful. And I think it was empowering for teachers, because they know now, I'm not going to give anybody my power over my executive brain. If a child's in their survival brain, then I'm going to stay. I'm not going to take that personally. I'm not going to get at that level. We've got to help those kids calm down, and it can't always be the counselor that does that anymore.
Well, I will say that I did train the staff on the ACE scores, and when I asked them, how many of you know what ACE scores are, one person in the faculty raised their hand. And I just asked that question because I didn't want to tell them something they already knew. I thought this is going to kind of gauge how much I go in depth on this. So one person raised their hand that they knew about ACE scores. By the end of my presentation and throughout that week, the teachers were saying, well, this one obviously has a high ACE score, or they started using that as part of their language when they were
Yeah.
talking about students. And so that warmed my counselor heart to know that this is now becoming a part of their language.
And one of the things that I just want to, before I forget to say this, when you share that ACE score, that is usually something that's used in a therapy session. So I tell my teachers, if this is something that maybe triggers you, or because there are usually tears when you share something like that, or people have stories, and they're always there just is. And so you just want to make sure that they know it's okay for them to seek help, finding someone, a therapist to talk to, that maybe they need to deal with their own ACE scores.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just very powerful. And you may not be this person at your school to bring this knowledge to your teachers, but you may be, or you may be the person who begins the conversation to bring somebody in to talk about it if you
Well, I
don't
was
feel.
going to say, sometimes we're the connector to the resource.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, again, I will say we are the social and emotional gatekeepers of our school. And so, as such, it is our job to bring the expertise, whether it's through us or through a speaker, that is within your role if you choose to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I this, I hope this conversation that we've had isn't muddled or confusing. I just, the point that we're trying to make is that you, as the school counselor, are one, two, maybe a few, but you're not in that classroom all day long. And is that teacher aware of maybe how they might be triggering students, or how maybe they're just going along with their subject matter, and some of those kids, their brains are not ready to learn. And so that's important information about the brain. And one of the things that Laura and I started doing last year, and we'll continue to do it this year, is to teach kids about it too. The kids
Yeah.
need to understand what's happening to them.
And I just want to say, when you say, is the teacher triggering that student? What that comes from is when you think about some of the situations that our kids are living in, and let's say you've got a high school student who has listened to his parents fight forever and ever. He's observed domestic violence. He's seen all these things, and then a teacher starts yelling at him. That could send him mentally to a place, a trigger, because that's what he experiences at home. And when we start to think in terms of ACE scores and maybe what these kids have dealt with at home, again, we're not administering this screener to students ever. But we just start thinking about it and wondering, what is this student's ACE score? What have they gone through? Just, like I said, we've been having these conversations over the past few weeks now, that we've been talking about students. And we've started saying, okay, that's an ACE score of 1. Okay, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, just as we start sharing stories of our student. And it just changes the way that you think about their behaviors.
And, Laura, I will say this, and I know we're going to wrap up, and because I see your kids are hanging off you and my kids are hanging off me. But this has always been so dear and close to my heart. And the story, and I may have shared it on our podcast before, but my dad has an ACE score of 9. He has everything except he was not sexually abused. His dad ended up murdering somebody and going to prison, but they lived in poverty, and they lived in this domestic abuse with alcoholism and all the things. And those ACE scores are true in that he lost most of his siblings at a young age. And anyway, to this day, he's 74 and he cries. He cannot talk about his school years. All these years later, because he says not one teacher ever asked him how he was doing.
Wow.
He still cries. He still cries. He still cries, because I mentioned this the other day again, just to tell him how I'm still working on, I call him, my dad's name's Daryl. I say the Daryl Project because I want teachers to be aware of how that still hurts him. But when he made it to high school, and he usually was in trouble because that's what a kid with trauma and brain is. They're usually in trouble, right? And so the teacher accuses him, and that day he hadn't done it, but the teacher comes at him, and that's a trigger for a kid that lives in domestic violence. So he picked up a desk and he threw it across the room.
Wow.
And, so by the 17th, he's out of school and he's working a job. And through all that, he ends up as a kid getting his hand cut off. He almost loses his life. His brother is on his way to see him, and his brother gets killed in a car wreck. And his dad ends up holding a gun on my dad's head when he comes out of the hospital. So he still is in very sick and bad condition. And neighbors are called, and I tell this story because and I've shared this at graduation, baccalaureates before, but my grandfather was holding a gun on my dad, and my other grandfather was the police officer that went in and took the gun. And that's the relationship that's the person that took time to build a relationship with him. And he ended up, marrying my mom. So it takes that relationship, but he still is so brokenhearted over nobody recognizing that. And so I see especially we've started minute meetings, and I started those today. And when I look in some of those kids' eyes and you see that trauma, you see those stories, whether they can tell you or not, and just making that connection with them is so powerful. So our jobs are so powerful, but we can't do them. We can't do it alone. And I think we're doing a disservice if we don't include teachers and the people that are with them the most in this conversation about what's going on in their brains.
Perfectly said. There's nothing more that we could say that would sum it up better than that.
Exactly. I do. This is where we're headed this year. So this is our goal. This is what we're working on this year. Laura and I is we started with Student Voice last year, and we're continuing with that and continuing with our being very just part of this conscious discipline, no matter what you call it, and helping others with that journey too. So yeah, that's what we're into this year. So check it out.
Very good. Well, as you all know, we have just released a book. It's called Growing Your Program for School Counselors. It is available on Amazon and other online book retailers. You can follow us on Instagram. We always love it when we see that little follow button in our notification. So thank you guys for following us. You can also join us on Facebook, and we love it whenever you guys rate and review our podcast. And also, if you've read our book and purchased it on Amazon, go leave an Amazon rating because it helps other people see that it's actually a real book.
I had a teacher pull it off my desk, and I didn't know she'd even borrowed it. She come back and she said, I'm like, what is an instructional coach doing reading, growing your school counseling program? She said, this is so funny. This is so funny. So it is fun, and it's funny, but it's got golden nuggets, if you will, in it. There's a lot of, it's just a fun way to help get your program straight.
It is.
If it's straightening or inspiring.
We hope that you enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed writing it, because it was a fun, long process, but it was fun.
Because we're so busy. But yes, it did take a long time to get that going. We have a new Meet the Groovy Counselor lesson that I started with my middle school today. I was promised that I would get roller skates from another teacher who was going to bring me roller skates so I could be really groovy. But the lesson was fun and great and light. So
honestly, we have a lot of speaking engagements coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and I really don't think that it would go well if you were in traction in the hospital. I don't think it would have the same effect. So
I hear you.
I'm
I hear you. And
grateful.
it's been a moment since I've been on roller skates, so maybe I'm grateful that she.
I am
can't.
grateful. Maybe she could wait until our schedule slows down a little bit. I don't know.
There we go. I hear you.